it was very relaxing to get it off you. But now your head's spinning. You know, now you're reliving the whole situation again.
Right.
You know, and that's
that's part of the suffering.
Yeah.
That's the suffering, and you held that what you felt was held inside for at that time. So it was February 13th, 2021. Your shooting was September 16th,
2014.
All right, so you held that in for 7 years almost.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Going at things alone, it's not impossible. But when difficulty strikes, flying solo is one of the more challenging situations to be in. There is nobody to pick up the slack, and the weight of the world is solely on your shoulders. All great structures are built with more than one block. As time moves on and more blocks are added to the structure, the weight of the entire house rests upon the first 2 blocks set in place. Knock those 2 blocks out, and the structure will crumble. There are several times throughout history where having a partner makes you stronger. You need the ability to have your decisions checked and your instincts verified, driving home the mantra that none of us are as strong as both of us. I'm Kevin Donaldson, here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we go back to episode 9. Yeah. This is episode 99.
9D9.
9D9. So episode 99, the suffering of 9D9. And as you can see, we're in a little different location today because we wanted to shake it up. This is a big event for us.
We're on the road.
Yeah, you know, we talk about episode 9 so frequently. I thought it was appropriate to do something a little different today.
I mean, because that was the beginning.
That was
it was the beginning for us. I mean, you know, you did have eight episodes before.
They were like scrimmages.
Yeah, it was preseason.
It was preseason. It was getting my bearings going because you know we're going to get into all the little different things that new podcasters go through. Before we do, I want to give a big shout out to Toyota of Hackensack. We buy our cars from Toyota because we don't trust anybody, and go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. As usual, Mike, we have to do a social media question.
Let's go. I'm all
and
over.
This one comes from Philip. Real simple. What was your favorite episode?
That's not simple.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot.
I could pick out 90 different good episodes. I'm going to have to go Gene Halberger.
Gene's always a very popular one.
That's always, you know,
it's pulling the heartstrings so hard.
De Palma.
What about Clark?
Clark, yeah. I mean, Clark's was one of the most gut-wrenching.
Clark's was hard to listen to.
It was tough to do, and it was tough to go home and watch it.
You know, Amanda Coleman blew for the Irish Angel, because the problem I had with Amanda Coleman's episode was we just kept walking down and walking down.
We kept waiting for it to come back up.
Right. You know, because we never leave an episode on a low note. Yeah. That one we sort of had to and break it up into 2 pieces. I was just waiting for that climb.
Well, I mean, we did the 2-parter with her, so next week hopefully it's going to be the whole uphill after that, because every time Amanda brought something up, it just dug a hole deeper.
You know,
and then it dug it deeper.
It's hard to pick out one episode because each episode has its merits. Like throw out Pastor Ron Lewis. That was like sitting down with Jordan Peterson, just listening to those pearls of wisdom coming out of his mouth, and the positivity. And I just spoke to him on Sunday, and you know, he gave us some real good props on that. He gave it to a friend who apparently is very, very critical, and he says, I can't stop listening to that episode. He said, I listened to it about 10 times already.
You know, I like the remotes we did too when we went to Live Free Farm.
The Live Free Farm was better than Hackensack Brewery.
Well, because we were rookies then. We had no idea what was going on.
Not to mention a hurricane happened at the end of it. You know, it got so bad
we had to shut down.
We had to hold the tent with our hands to keep it from flying away. That's how bad it got in there.
The blue suicide when we were on the trailer bed
with Sheriff David Clark.
Sheriff David Clark.
We did Dr. Steph there. We did Anna Peisch, and we did Sheriff David Clark, and that's where we met the Mike Dowd.
Yeah,
and Charlie Cifarelli from the 14th and 2nd.
You know,
fame.
I mean, just something small like that. You know, how many connections did we get out of that? Like you said, we got Sheriff Clark,
Charlie,
we got Mike Dowd.
And Blue Magazine, their whole
Blue
crew.
Magazine.
They actually just went down to Florida, and I wanted to go, but I can't leave my kids during football. I can't do it. I leave them already one night a week to come record, and it's hard for me to do it. So picking out, Philip, to answer your question, to pick out one episode that was good for us, they all have their merits. I hate to give you that politician type answer, but they all have their merits.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
I wish we had a call-in line where we call Philip and say, what was your favorite episode? I'd love to talk to the audience and say, what was your favorite episode?
To think about it, and this is going to be a nice segue into this episode, 9D9.
9D9.
One of my favorite episodes was episode 9.
Yeah.
We were 8 episodes prior to that. It was figuring stuff out.
Well, I mean, you did have a partner at the beginning, correct?
I did. Oh, so that's something important to talk about. So when you get a podcast partner, sometimes you just don't gel.
Yeah.
You're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. And
without a hammer.
Yeah, and I had an inkling that he was going to drop. Like, I had an inkling. And listen, I still talk to him. I coach his kid, for God's sakes. There's no hard feelings, but I had a feeling he was going to drop. I could just see his interest waning in it, and he wasn't giving. And so after after 2 episodes. Yeah, it was after 2 episodes. Here's exactly how it went down.
It was right after the election.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was one for one side that didn't win, and sort of kind of threw him into a little bit of a tailspin. But I had a whole episode planned where we were going to bring the wives in. It was going to be the suffering of marriage. And I thought it was a great episode, and I prepped everybody. His wife was coming in, my wife was coming in, and we always recorded on a Sunday then. I get a call Saturday morning. I'm on the spin bike, and I get a call and says, "Yeah, I'm not doing a podcast anymore." I'm like, no, it was episode. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be episode 4. I go, what the fuck? Like, I got so mad because what got me mad was not that he was going to do it, because, like I said, I had inklings that he was going to do it. It was doing it one day before, and at that time we had no leeway. Like, we're a month ahead of time now. We had no leeway back then.
Well, we've had a lot of people bail out on us a day before.
Yeah.
A couple hours before.
We had a reality star who forgot that he went down the shore as we're sitting in studio, and we were doing a double that day.
Yep.
We were doing Kevin Dombrowski, The Suffering of a Comedian, and
which was another good episode.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I always kept my phone on the desk because we were only doing audio, so we didn't have cameras in front of us. And I see a text from our go-between. Like, he didn't even have enough respect to text me. I was like, you son of a bitch, man. I got so mad. And I think we stopped recording. I go, yeah, he just canceled.
It's funny too, because I told you I ran into him one day at a high school football game.
Yeah.
And introduced myself. And the first thing he said, oh, yeah, I really want to come in and see the show or do the show.
Do the suffrage.
Yeah, dude, let's do the suffrage.
Let's do the suffrage. But you know what?
We had a police officer that bailed out because it was snowing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. A police officer. And that was insane. Yeah. Like, you're a police officer. You work in bad weather. Come on.
Yeah,
but
I don't want to come up because it's snowing out.
But that we get those guests in there, and it seems like a good idea when you schedule them, when they schedule with you, and I know they want to do it, but then they think about it and they get cold feet. We're to the point now where we're scheduling 2 months ahead of in advance.
We're set for a while.
So, if you schedule somebody 2 months in advance and they have 2 months to think about it, it's like selling a car, like Toyota of Hackensack. The salesmen will all say this stuff. You want to get them before they wake up. That's the terminology that they will use. So it's not take advantage of them, but they have what's called buyer's remorse. And it happens with podcast guest remorse, where they start thinking about it, like, fuck, I got to bare my soul. I'm not going to do this shit.
Have there been times, and I don't want to pick out a specific episode, where you will, like we used to do it on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. You ever wake up Sunday morning and say, like, I really don't feel like doing this today?
Never.
I don't feel like talking to this guy. But there are some subjects.
Guests?
Yeah.
Yes.
Guests?
Yes.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yes. Where I'd say this is going to be like polishing a turd. And,
well, in the beginning we were stretching to get some people in there.
Yeah, well, we were nobody.
We had nothing.
We had no presence. Hey, you want to come on a new podcast? I didn't even tell anybody I was doing it for the longest time. Guy at work, I'm sitting down with him. He's a good friend of mine. We're sitting talking, and he says, you should do a podcast. And I said, well, actually, I do. I'm about 15 episodes in. I didn't tell anybody because it's, now I'm much more proud of the work we produce out of here. But back then, I don't think I was. I think I was very shy when it came to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people just to get listeners and,
Yeah, of course. You got to get the word out.
I mean,
there's all sorts of different methodologies to get the word out.
I'm not saying that I'm not proud that I do this, but it's not like, oh yeah, I do a podcast. It's, hey, you want to listen to my podcast? It's helping out a lot of people.
Right.
If you hear someone, for some reason, people just wind up knowing you're an ex-cop and they want to tell you their stories. It happens all the time.
For you, getting back to that podcast remorse, guest remorse, when I called you, and I was going through my phone, and I'm like, I needed guests, and then I came across your number, and at that time I had left group because I had to get. That was my own little personal struggle. There was some shit going on, and I just had to separate from group. I called you, and I said, "Hey, listen, Mike, I do this podcast." You had told me you'd done a podcast, Zoom, a telephone,
yeah,
or
telephone with Jose Medina.
Right. So, what did you think? What were your thoughts? I don't think we ever talked about this.
Well, I mean, my first foray into it, like I said, was with Jose, and he does a great podcast. Don't get me wrong, but it was over the phone.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was just I had to get in my car, go somewhere where I had good reception on my phone, so it wouldn't cut in, and because I was living in my basement at that point, pretty much, and I didn't get great reception, so I had to go sit in my car. First time I did it, I had it on speaker because I just didn't feel like having the phone up to my ear the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We did the whole interview on speakerphone. He called me up right after and said, "Yeah, it didn't really come out." He said, "We're gonna have to do it again tomorrow."
DOC TV.
yeah, exactly.
That was one of the episodes we did down in Florida where I recorded a half an hour, and he's like, "Oh, we got to do it again." I'm like, "Come on, man! I got to tell this twice."
That put us back. We were leaving to go to the West Coast at like midnight.
Yeah, no, we get no. Actually, we got done. We were supposed to be there at 3, and then he pushed it back to 7. And by the time we were done, it was 10 o'clock. We hit the road and don't get into our location till 1 o'clock in the morning. But your specific thoughts, they're like, who's this jerk off? I know you did it. I know why. I know you did it because I'm a friend.
Oh yeah, first and foremost.
Right.
First and foremost. I mean, I had no idea what the podcast was all about.
Did you want to do it? Did you just do it because of friendship?
Mainly because of friendship.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just thought it would be a cool idea. Get in front of a couple mics and talk about my story. And, if my story helped people out, then it helped people out. I didn't, it's not like,
And you had Mackie with you that day. It's the first day I met Mackie.
Yeah.
Yeah. She sat in the corner, like quiet as a church mouse. I tried to involve her. I'm like, hey, I'll set up a mic. I had plenty of microphones. I'm like, hey, I'll set up a microphone for you. And so he's still busting my balls about the clothespins.
Clothespins.
I would take pictures during the podcast to put on social media, and I made these lecterns so your head would stay up, and you wouldn't dip your chin because it changes your voice.
I still got the pictures of that on my phone.
Yeah, and Mike's sitting there reading, and there's the paper clip because that was how you held the outline up. I always gave the guests the outline just so they could follow along. And but as the episode moved on, what was going on? What did you feel?
It was just it was almost a sense of relief, because aside from attorneys and giving your statement to the police, I never really went in depth about my story. You tell people,
probably wrote it down a couple times.
Yeah. I have books and notes at home somewhere, where I just sit down and I'd start writing things down, but I never openly talked about it. And as we were going, it just, I was a little hesitant at first.
Yeah.
Because
it's tough to bare your soul.
Yeah.
With no one. And at that time, listen, maybe we got 75 downloads.
Yeah.
So you're still telling it to 75
people.
Right.
Yeah. And and it's not showing weakness, but you almost don't want to show weakness. I mean, because in the beginning, I mean, when I talked about it, I still go up to the Bergen County Police Academy and talk to recruit classes about it. I still tear up in front of the recruit class.
You teared up a couple times in that episode.
Oh, yeah.
You teared up, but it was...
And you don't want to put yourself out there like, you don't want to look like a pussy, but it's an emotional thing.
So I encouraged, when Charlie Cifarelli, our podcast was the first show that he had went on, and his episode did fairly well. I think he got, I want to say 300 views or something like that. And it was good. It was real good. And he was a little downtrodden because 300 doesn't sound like a lot. But with audio, it's different. People usually listen to the listen times much longer. People were listening to the whole episode. I said, Charlie, and it was an hour episode. Yeah. I said, Charlie, do you understand that you had 3,000 hours or 300 hours?
Yeah, 300 hours to listen.
Of people investing their time in your story. It's a humbling experience. Now he's got a reel up there that's got 5 million views.
But, it's funny. We talked about it when we had Charlie in here. We took the picture of Charlie the day in your studio in the basement, where he was all slumped over and he just downtrodden. He's just such a vibrant person now, and he accepted it, and he's become like a podcast megastar now.
So it was nice because his release and your release on episode 9, the release of all that pent up just darkness, and so in your episode. Specifically that release of the darkness, getting all that stuff out, and you leave there and you feel like shit for a couple of days.
The ride home wasn't, I mean, it was very relaxing to get it off you, but now your head's spinning. Mm-hmm. Now you're reliving the whole situation again.
Right.
And that's.
Well, that's part of the suffering.
Yeah.
That's the suffering, and you held that what you felt was held inside for at that time. So it was February 13th, 2021. Your shooting was September 16th,
2014.
All right, so you held that in for 7 years almost. And then, so I don't know about you, but taking a couple hours or even a couple days where you're feeling like shit is better than holding it in for 7 years.
Oh, yeah, without doubt.
When I talk to people about this show, it's all about letting that stuff out, letting that out. But we had this in our episode. Because we knew each other, we had a prior relationship. We were in group together. I knew your brother for a very long time.
We had a camaraderie.
We had an ebb and flow.
Yeah,
we had an ebb and flow. When the worst thing for any of these shows is dead air. It's death. We recorded an episode last night, and there was dead air, and you're just like, oh shit. But there was no dead air. The conversation flowed.
Just kept moving. Because it was two friends getting together talking.
Right.
Two friends that have been through similar situations. So I knew that you knew how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I felt the same thing when I recorded
when you did your shooting episode.
So the only
by yourself.
The only reason I did that by myself is because I had no episode that week because my partner bailed on me.
That was supposed to be the marriage episode.
That was supposed to be the marriage episode, right? And which I've never done the marriage episode. I'd love to do it in the future. I have it all written out and everything.
Count me out of that one.
We'll get Mackie a ring and we'll get that. We'll get that.
No, that can't happen.
Let's get health benefits. Come on.
No.
La. If you ever did that, bro, I'd kick you right in the nuts. I would. I would just like field goal kick you right in the nuts.
Not happen.
But that's what it was like for me. So I recorded that Saturday that he bailed on me. So I was just like, let me get it out there. Let me do it. And I think I went into my office at work, and just so I could have a quiet place, I wrote some notes, went back, recorded it, edited it. And
your bosses don't listen to the show, do they?
No.
Okay, good.
No. But that, I felt like shit. I had it all written down like you did, and I felt like shit the next couple days. And but then I just felt this, this nice relief.
Listen, like you said, the armor.
Hashtag episode 9, hashtag armor, hashtag
prairie
suffering,
fire.
Prairie fire.
We could do a show just on hashtags.
The hashtags, the suffering of hashtags. That's a good one. But I went, and you've heard this before, but let me tell our audience. So the way I used to do it is I used to go sit in my garage because it's a quiet spot. And I'd have my computer there. I'd put headphones on, and I'd go through the episodes. I'd take out all the ums and the ahs. It's much better than being on video because you have much more control over the editing process.
I actually sounded good back then.
It was nice because, people are like, I sounded really good. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's the magic of editing. And I sat down and I'm going through it. And how I did it back then was I took out the ums and ahs, and then I went back and listened to the whole episode for continuity. And by the second time I went through it, I remember calling you. And I said, hey, Mike, we got something.
Yeah.
That
something. Was like your exact words. I think it was, we really got something here.
We really got something here. It was like a really riveting episode where even though I was in the studio recording it, I couldn't stop listening to it. And I think there was a long stretch of time. You had 333 downloads in the first week, because that's how I judged everything. And that's what
we used to base it off of, right?
Yeah.
Your first 7 days.
Your first 7 days, and you had 333 downloads. And for us, that was like holy shit. We just quadrupled or tripled our
just hit the mother load.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, this is something really good. And I sent it to you. I think I sent it to you. I said, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. And normally what I would do is I would air them on very early Monday mornings. That one, I said, I can't wait. This has got to go out Sunday. And that's why to this day, our audio comes out Sunday at 4 a.m. And for everybody out there, the reason that it comes out 4 a.m. because sometimes it takes a couple hours to upload to certain platforms, like Google takes a long time. So I figure if I do it Sunday morning, by Monday morning drive time, it'll be up everywhere. And now it's just habit. That's how it's done.
Yeah, it was really a life-changing day that day.
What was, when you got that phone call, what was inside of you in that time?
When you said we really got something?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I hadn't even listened to the episode yet. And when you're going through it, and we just talked about this before, when you're going through it, you really don't realize what's going on.
No.
You don't really grasp the whole content of what we're saying until you listen to it on your own.
How many guests we get in here? We record an hour and they're like, wow, the hour's up. Yeah. Every single one of them.
Happened last night.
Every single one of them will say the same, wow, an hour's up.
Yeah.
I would say that was the same with you. I mean, sometimes we do a little bit more than an hour when we were on audio. It was a little different.
I think mine was an hour and 9 minutes.
Not that you listened to it.
Not that I listened to it 300 times.
Mike can actually,
I listened to it 333 times in the first week.
He could actually recite every word verbatim. Let me read the intro, and I'm going to try to do this without my glasses. So the original, if you go back and listen to episode 9, it says, it's an odd person who's willing to put their life on the line for others, that they do not know and may not even want them to do so. It's a life sacrifice. It's a life of selflessness. It's a life of suffering. You walk out the door one morning, one person, and an unusual or an extraordinary event happens. You come home. If you're lucky enough to come home, another entirely different person. A person whom your family and friends don't recognize anymore. You're injured, although no wound is visible. You're in pain, but you're not sure where. You've changed, but you're not sure how. You're left to deal with the overwhelming darkness all alone, or so you think. There are others out there. We can help. None of us are as strong as all of us. And in last night's episode,